Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we have an incredible guest. Now, this guy is an OG, I mean, original gangster, true original gangster. This man is one of the original Rooftop Koreans. That's right. This guy defended all of the bodegas, I guess, or are they technically called bodegas in LA from the crazy gangs in the 90s. He's also a patriot. He's a freaking doesn't like the vaccine. So that's why I love this guy. Let's bring on the one, the only Tony Moon. Tony, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Alex. Thanks for having me on this show. It's a pleasure to be here.
And could you hear me that well? You couldn't even hear me that well because my mic was down there. Could you? It sounded bad, didn't it? Did that introduction sound? Let me do that introduction one more time.
It's all right. It got really loud all of a sudden.
Yeah, because I didn't have my microphone up. My microphone was still on the ground. I'm an idiot. Sorry, Tony.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm gonna start it from the beginning. Actually, forget it. Actually, let me start it from the beginning because then I know my editor's gonna be like, "Oh, well, the audio is bad," so I'm gonna do it again. Okay.
No, it's good now, and now's the important part. So let's just move on.
Okay, well, let's go. Well, Tony, can you tell us in the 90s, we see all these videos all the time, the Rodney King beating, and then you see the guy get thrown out of the truck and get his head stomped. What was really going on in 1992 when these riots and Rodney King, what was really going on? Can you tell us?
Yeah, that was basically there was racial tension between the Black and the Korean community, and it was brewing for a while because a lot of the Koreans that purchased these businesses in the Black community did so because they were the easiest places to go and start, start a business
Well,
without
isn't
really
that the
having.
conspiracy? Isn't that the conspiracy? There's always old conspiracies that it was they were able to get loans easier if the Chinese person would open it in like in a worse neighborhood or something. Wasn't there
Right.
something to that? Like, I
Yeah,
guess
see
maybe they were.
that's bullshit. I mean,
See,
my
that's
dad,
bullshit.
he,
Yeah, I don't know if
yeah,
that's true. That's the rumors is what they say. They said, oh, well, all
well,
the
it's bullshit.
Koreans went to the
No,
hood
no,
because
no.
they got better insure or better
No,
loans and this and
so
that.
so my parents, my dad, he did the same thing, but instead of opening it down in South Central in Compton, his first store was in Boyle Heights. Anybody who's watching from LA knows what that is or where that is, but it was right off of Soto near Evergreen, which is pretty much in the heart. It's a very predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. So that was his first store, and then the second store that he purchased after he sold that one was in Huntington Park, which is further down south. It butts against South Central LA, so it's like Huntington Park, Southgate, that area. And that's where he purchased the second store. But yeah, in order for him to get that store, he had to pretty much ask his dad, my grandfather, for money to be sent from Korea so he can open a store because they didn't have a lot of. My dad first immigrated to Germany, so he had to learn German, right? And then he wanted a better opportunity because in Germany it's very structured, and he knew that there wasn't really a lot of social upward mobility if you want to be an entrepreneur or open a business. So he came to America. He borrowed money from my grandfather to open a store. But the whole concept of loans or that they got better loans, that's all bullshit. I mean,
Good.
these
Well, that's
people had to
good.
either borrow money, or save and save whatever money that they had through hard work and sweat to open a business. So none of these loans, I mean, why would they even give them loans? They just came to this country. Like, I mean, they can take the
Well,
money and
that's
run.
that,
I
that's
mean,
what
it
they
just makes
said.
no sense.
Well, the conspiracy is like, oh, well, none of the white business owners would be dumb enough to get a loan to open a business in the black neighborhood. So, it was left to the hardworking Koreans and Asian community, were forced to go there. That was that's the anecdotal reason because people do ask why are there so many Asian markets or grocery stores or gas stations, whatever you want to call it, in predominantly black areas. But I think it's what you said. It's because they wanted upward mobility. They're here, immigrants, and they're not going to be able to buy a store in Beverly Hills starting out. It would make sense that you'd have to start out in Huntington Park next to South Central. So I see.
Right.
I like that we already debunked that conspiracy. But you said something very interesting. Okay, so we're in the 90s. Your dad has the store. He's trying to make ends meet. It's probably, it's a hard business. The price margins are very small in this stuff. So when people steal and this and that, it can really cause you could a whole month you could be in the black or in the red because of somebody stealing small stuff. So I guess my point is it's a hard business.
It is.
Why were the blacks and the Koreans, why were they fighting over this? Because the blacks felt like they can't afford groceries. Why were they, I guess, putting the blame on the Korean store owner instead of, I guess the manufacturers are the bigger problem?
It's cultural.
Hmm.
In Korean society, we have a hierarchy, and we also have courtesy amongst each other, right? Even between strangers, there's a certain amount of courtesy that you have. In these communities, these aren't like the high-end Black communities. These are more on the lower end where the culture is very different. So a really good example is how I give you back your money, right? So, or if I give you money, because it's money is pretty important to Koreans, like
Hmm.
all Asians. It's a way to do commerce, it's a way to exchange goods. And
But you're saying they have more
culture,
respect for money, is what you're kind of
right?
trying to insinuate. They
Right.
really
And just
respect it. Yeah.
to an individual, someone you don't know, a stranger, right? So if I was to give you $5, I don't like just kind of toss it on the table, which is in America, that's like, all right, here's $5. You
Yeah.
just kind of, all right, here you go, right? But in Asian culture, we hand it to you, right? We put it in your hand, we say, here's $5, and we actually hand it to you. We don't just toss it. So when these customers come in and they're just being, Americans and they're just tossing it here, hey, here's $5. Korean people, they took offense to that. And these Koreans that came, a lot of them that came over aren't if you watch Korean dramas, the ones that have the shops in Seoul or Busan or, that have that type of gregarious nature. These Koreans were highly educated. Some of them had college degrees, right? So coming here, opening a shop and having to deal with this, day in, day out, which they, saw viewed as disrespect. I mean, it became aggravating. So that's where part of the animosity builds as well, right? And then just the cultural differences between the two, which is Korean culture during that time, because a lot of these guys that came over came during a military dictatorship in Korea. So it was very rigid in terms of how things were. And they come here and everything's very loose and, the vibe is very different. So you have that clash and that builds up over time, and after some time, you're going to have a powder keg. You're going to have something that goes off.
And so, what really the powder keg was Rodney King, right? And so, well, I guess what was the turning point? Rodney King, is that when you had to get the gun and go on your roof? When did you become a rooftop Korean? When did that really start where they had to sit on the roofs? Was it just during the Rodney King riots?
Yeah, and let me kind of run that back because
Yeah.
Rodney King happened in '92, but there was another case in '91 that was the powder keg, which is the Latasha Harlins shooting. It
Oh, the
was
Latasha Harlan. Yes, I watched the documentary. Yeah, the Latasha Harlan was the
right,
big deal. And so she was shot by a Korean gas. She had an orange juice, right? Can you tell us the Latasha
right,
Harlan?
right,
And
right.
and arguably she was unfairly killed, right? I mean, it's kind of how you view it. What did she get mad at the girl? Can you tell us the Latasha Harlan
So
story?
what
So
happened was she comes into the store. She gets accused of taking orange
shoplifting.
juice, and right, and then she
She
turns
did
around.
shoplift. Didn't she shoplift? There
She
wasn't she
shoplifted, but
shoplifting? She
one
was
thing they don't
shoplifting.
talk about is how Latasha Harlins was a big 14-year-old girl. And the
Yeah,
shopkeeper
yeah, yeah.
was a small Asian lady. Latasha Harlins beat the fuck out of the shop
Yeah, I
lady,
remember that. I remember that's a story.
right?
She called her out, right? And she did have the orange juice. She got caught
Right,
basically stealing.
right.
Yes.
So she got her. I mean, she beat the crap out of this lady, and this lady, she's never gone through anything like that before, right?
And
So,
as
I think
Latasha was walking out is when she shot her, right?
right because
Yeah.
because her thinking was that this was just not a one-time beating, that she was going to turn around and come back, or and plus, I mean, she was just. I think I didn't go back and read the transcripts because I was really young at that time. I think I was like 18, 19, 17, and I wasn't plugged in politically. I just
Yeah.
knew about the shooting, and I was like, okay,
And
and
this
I
is
had
before the internet. This is really before the internet, so you only could read it from the news and what you
right,
heard or saw on TV. You could really
exactly,
do your own research, really.
right. So I lived in my own little bubble, and I think what she stated was that she was kind of out of her mind because of the beating, and that because of that, she's like
And,
temporary insanity,
and she got not guilty, and rightfully so. I know that people are not, the black community doesn't like that, but I know Latasha Harlan was a 14-year-old, so that's where they're like, oh, she shot some little kid. You are right. If you guys go watch this documentary, there's multiple documentaries about it, but Latasha was big. Latasha beat her up, and as she's walking out, who knows what Latasha is going to go back and go get from her car or this. So really and truly, the shop owner probably it sucks that she fatally shot her, but her shooting her to protect herself really wasn't in the wrong. And this caused a huge backlash because she got not guilty, correct?
right, right. So after that, a year goes by, then you have Rodney King, and now the city's just, I mean, the
Well,
black community.
What was the tension before the Rodney King? Because I remember after Latasha Harlan, were they going to the Korean? Were they, kind of talking shit to the Korean,
Well,
gas
that
station
that's
workers,
where
all
it
those
built.
shop workers.
The animosity built from that, and there was a song that from Ice Cube back in the day called Black Korea. And if you read the lyrics, it's against Korean shop owners and businesses that were in that area. So he
Uh,
capitalized on that sentiment, and that built up until 92 when Rodney King happened. And from there, that was pretty much, and what they needed in order to, loot the stores, burn stuff down. But see, that was more towards South LA. And in South
Hey,
LA,
well, real quick, let me call a TV timeout because I'm going to
right,
forget about this. You're an anti-vaxxer. You're obviously a conspiracy theorist. You're smart like me, Tony. I can tell you're a very smart guy. Isn't this what they want? Isn't this what we kind of talk about the globalists, the deep state. Isn't this like out of their game plan? Like, hey, let's have the blacks and the Koreans and the Asians fighting because it kind of helps us. We don't have to worry about it. It's kind of like how they want Mexicans and black people fighting. So do you think was there some, I guess, kind of manipulation to create this sort of drama, you think, in LA when all this stuff was happening? Like, I guess
I'm
by
not 100%.
globalists?
I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure, but I know like during that time, they were more concerned about flooding the inner cities with crack. So that
Yeah.
was the plan than anything. I don't, this was just kind of the cherry on top. And
This is a
then,
byproduct of it. So you
right.
think, yeah,
And
because we know the Iran Contra, they were trading guns with
exactly.
Nicaraguans and bringing,
Right.
we literally, the CIA was bringing in cocaine. And so this was in your neighborhood in the 90s. The crack epidemic was in LA and Miami, New
Right.
York,
So
but I think it
let me
was
just
worse.
fast forward till today. What I, this is kind of what I'm postulating, and this might be off the wall, perhaps it's not, but um, right now we have the ICE protests, that are happening in LA. That's now going to spread on the 14th of Saturday. It's going to be called No Day for Kings or some bullshit like
It's supposed
that.
to be the biggest protest ever is this weekend.
Right, right, right. So I think against that backdrop, there's a high possibility that we may go to war with Iran, right? Israel will go to war with Iran. We'll
They're
somehow
saying
get
that's going to happen today, which is ridiculous.
right,
That Israel's going to go bomb Iran, which is the last thing we need.
right.
But get us
And
into
then
World
we
War
get
III.
sucked into this with Israel for whatever reason, right? So now at that point, it's going to shut down protests, not just for ICE, but there's going to be a shutdown on protests in general. So if there's a peace protest, demanding peace, and one of those rare moments where the left and right join together, saying like, "Hey, we don't want to be in the Middle East." It's going to be a good excuse for the current administration to shut down all protests to make sure, like, they clamp down on ICE, on the peace protests or anti-war protests, and then at the same time bring in Palantir to basically data collect on everybody that's going to be out there or just has any sort of sentiment that's against ICE or against the war.
But
I
real quick, I know you're as much of a conspiracy theorist as me. Palantir probably has all of our data already. You know what I mean? They already
right,
have all
right,
of our, if they have our cell phone, we try to like get the impression like, oh, well, we don't want Palantir to have, they all got our data. We just, I guess,
yeah,
haven't
yeah,
consented 100%, but they got it all, which is
right.
kind of, that is what it is. Sorry to cut you off, Tony.
Right. No, no, that's fine. And you're absolutely 100% correct. And one of the things that the feds, what they'll do if they're investigating you is that they'll ask for all the information from the platforms, right? Let's say we're in June, right? So they'll
Facebook
ask for it in
or
June. Yeah, everything, right? And then you won't get the notice that they were notified until September. So from in June until September, the feds would have had complete access to your information. They would have monitored all of your communications, and you wouldn't know about this until September, you know?
Or theoretically, with the Patriot Act, really they have warrantless search and seizure of our phones and emails right now. We could be under
Right.
surveillance. You have no idea. I mean, they used that after
Exactly.
January 6th. So, yeah,
Exactly.
okay. Okay, but let's go back to 1992 though, because I do want to kind of get the story. We only have you for so long. So now
Okay. Okay.
we're the Letitia. I mean, she gets killed. Now we have the Rodney King. So it's been boiling. Now it boils over. So what? Why is it okay though? You and I'm empathetic to you, but why is it all of a sudden okay to go get a gun on your roof? Because they're looting, so that's why it's okay to become the rooftop Asian. You know what I mean? Because some people would be
Right.
like, "How are you going to be able to have a gun on your rooftop pointing at people? That
Okay.
doesn't
So
make
so
sense."
so
Can you give
let,
context why you
I'm
became the
gonna
rooftop? Yeah.
I'm gonna fast forward this for time, but yeah, LA is broken up into different counties, and I mean different cities. So the fire started down in the south in the black community, and the Korean stores that are in the black community are kind of like little pockets of islands that are just kind of sprinkled throughout. As they moved up north to Koreatown proper, it's different. So it wasn't so much the looting that was happening in Koreatown, but I mean, this is something nobody talked. There was actually a gang war between us and some of the Hispanic gangs were in that neighborhood that were shooting at us. And that's something nobody talks about because I can say for a fact right now that one of the largest gangs in LA, which is MS-13, got into a fight with the Koreans in 92 because that's who was shooting at us. And we weren't shooting at looters, right? So no one's going to get shot over, a pack of
The
diapers.
TV, yeah.
Right, or TV. These guys were actively doing drive-bys on us. And this is during a time when they just came up as one of the foremost gangs in LA, which they started in the 1980s. And then by the time 92 came around, they were actually carving out territory that belonged to some of the more established gangs that were in that area, especially their biggest rival being 18th Street. So that's the true story of who these guys were shooting at. We weren't shooting at looters. We were shooting. This was a gang war that erupted in LA in 92 between the Korean community and MS.
Well, you talked about on Glenn's thing, you didn't really have a better description that you would go out and get the guns and you'd go hunt for these gangs. Can you
Right,
elaborate on that?
because some of us that grew up in the 90s have a particular background, which I go into detail in my book, that know LA, that are part of LA culture during the 90s. And we knew how these territories are carved up in LA. So we already knew who these guys were, who was shooting, just by the description of the car, how they dressed, what they looked like. We can distinguish the difference between Mexican gangs and Salvadorian gangs.
They all had some sort of marker or something, I guess to what
Yeah,
identify,
it's in my book.
what
I talk
set they
about, but
were. Yeah,
there's certain
whatever.
distinctions that they have that we know who they are, and that's pretty much how we went out. And once we found out who they were, is we went out. A lot of the younger guys went out looking for these guys because we knew who they were and where their neighborhood was and how to find them. So I go into that experience in my book regarding what happened, why these younger guys, which isn't talked about, is that some of us may have actually helped stop these drive-by shootings that are occurring at these businesses because of where the neighborhoods that we went into, and to put a lot of these guys on notice that it's not just going to be drive-bys on these guys that are in the businesses, but we actually know their neighborhood and their hood, and that if you come and fuck around with us, we will fuck you up.
It was gang war. I mean, I mean, you were protecting yours. So who was in your posse? Did you have a bunch of Korean dudes in your posse and y'all had guns? Or I mean, what was it? Or were you
Well,
just kind of
it's not like we were coordinated, but
yeah.
I had my driver. I was the shooter, so I had my driver, and we, drove through areas and pockets. Not like we coordinated. And at that time, we know who everybody was just by ethnicity, right? So if I see a carload Hispanic guy in a particular vehicle wearing a particular style of clothes, then I already know whether they're in that one group or another, right? And then they also know that if they see Asians like us that are out there that aren't wearing pocket protectors, nerdy glasses, and we're out there and we have a certain look, they know who we are too. So it's all understood.
Yeah.
LA is very complicated and it's layered.
It
It's
is
not
very layered, and that's a
yeah,
very good way to describe it because you have Russian gangs, Chinese, Asian, Black, Mexican.
right.
You have I mean, literally, it is the definition of a melting pot. You have every single gang. So you're kind of walking around, or not walking around, you're driving in these neighborhoods. You got these guns. Why are you seem to be talking about the Mexicans, but it seems like on TV we get the impression there's all Black versus Asian. So where did the Mexicans, Blacks? How was this? Kind of give us the demographic breakdown. Who is the
Right.
biggest threat, the Blacks or the
So,
Mexicans?
so it's well, it depends the area that you're in. Because
And
if
the
you're down,
whites were the whites ever a threat? Were the whites ever messing with the bodegas ever? Or were they ever shooting it up? They may, there's
yeah,
some crackhead white people, that do something stupid, but yeah,
yeah, no, but it wasn't about race. That's what everybody
yeah.
gets wrong. It was about which tribe you belong to in terms of the streets, right? Because a lot of these business owners, they employed Black and Hispanic workers, right? So these guys,
You're talking about
they
the
don't.
Korean owners. The Korean owners would have Black eyes and Asian,
Right,
whatever,
right.
the people
So
that
these
work in the
guys don't
neighborhood.
want the place to burn down because there goes their employment, and how are they going to, pay their bills? So some of them actually came and they took up arms and they were standing up there with us. So
Well, and
in
these
LA,
shops were very important. You have to remember, like they kind of had food deserts too, right? You know what I mean? There wasn't a grocery store in every corner, so you'd go to the
right,
whatever.
exactly,
They would get a lot.
right,
They would get their whole groceries there, basically, kind of, or whatever
right,
they would eat for the day.
exactly. So it's not based upon race. It's based upon who you know and what neighborhood and what you're protecting. So that's where the lines were drawn. And I think the shots I see in social media and on the news, they try to paint it one way, but like I said, there's a deeper story to this, and it's culturally, it's about the history of LA and the people that grew up here.
Well, LA is a crazy place. I can't believe you, grew up in LA working in these, what do I just call them? Korean shops? Because I want to keep saying bodega, but that's not. What do you call the LA version of
Just
a New
call them
York bodega?
shops. Yeah,
Just
businesses,
shops.
shop.
Okay, just
Yeah.
shops. Yeah, I know. You know what I mean. I feel like it needs to have some, trendier name, but I guess a shop works well. So this, when does it boil down? When did LA finally cool off and it becomes a place where you can kind of not worry about, a Latino dude in a lowrider having to go get a gun to shoot
See,
back
that's
at
the
you?
thing that it wasn't a Latino guy in a lowrider. So
Oh,
I'm
what
just,
it was.
I know
Is that
some of
what?
your, no,
That's what
because
that is. That what the
no,
stereotype would be?
see,
Yeah. So
there's a
there.
distinction between the Mexican gangs and the Salvadorian gangs, the Salvadorian gang. So there's a huge distinction. If you live in LA, people already know what I'm talking about. There's a distinction, a
Well,
very clear
Mexicans are
distinction.
different from El Salvadorians. Obviously, I didn't, and Mexicans think they're better than El Salvadorians. So there's a
Everybody
huge
thinks they're better
distinction.
than everybody. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you go on Twitter, you just read everybody thinks they're better than everybody. You know, it's so
That's
human.
true. That is true.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were there on January 6th too. So you're a real badass, Tony. Okay, now we see what's going on in LA, though. I mean, you could have called this. Do you think? But this is what I was just listening to a podcast with Tim Dillon, and Tim Dillon's a funny comedian, but he was talking about how, and I like Joe Rogan, but how Joe Rogan kind of acts like every year that LA is about to crumble, right? We kind of always hear this like, oh, LA is on the brink of destruction. And we see these videos and they look bad, but then I'm also hearing on Twitter that people are like, I'm in West Hollywood. I didn't see one protester. I couldn't be bothered by it. I didn't even know, it looks bad on TV. So I think LA is one of the greatest cities in the world, even though it's crazy and dangerous. Is LA going to collapse? Is this the last of LA, or is LA too resilient and this will be a nothing burger in the long run?
That's a good question. I want to say we're resilient. You know, we just had fires this year. Now we have this. And I remember in the 90s, we had the riots and then we had the Northridge earthquake as well. So there was a lot of talk about the exodus from California or from LA because, due to those things and we were going to fall into the sea and whatnot. But I think the people that are here, like myself and others, I think we're pretty resilient. We just got to find new leadership. We have to find new leadership within the city. The board of supervisors, the mayor, also leadership in social services like paramedics, fire, law enforcement. We just need new leadership. We need leadership to stand up and step up and say, like, we're truly gonna turn around this shithole because that's what LA's become. It's become a total shithole, right?
And it doesn't make sense because if you look at LA, I mean, now Hollywood's dying, but I mean, LA was the epicenter of cool. Every reality show, LA. And I know there's more to LA than what you just see on TV. And I lived in Los Angeles for 2 years and it was the most fun I've ever had. But it's just, I guess now the cachet of like Hollywood and all that, it is kind of dying out. But even you as a conspiracy theorist, like, nothing I don't think can ever really kill Los Angeles. And, it's just too resilient of a place. People will
Do
always
you
want to
remember
go there.
that there was an old movie with Kurt Russell called Escape from LA? That was a sequel to Escape from New York,
New York, yeah. I never
right?
saw Escape from LA, but I
I
saw
didn't
parts
either.
of
I
it.
saw
Yeah,
Escape to
yeah.
New York, but yeah, and one of them he's surfing down, into Santa Monica on a huge wave on a surfboard or something, I mean, this was back what in the 80s. I think that movie
Mhm.
came out, right? And we're still here. It's just, you know.
Yeah, and there's so many wealthy people and stuff. They're not gonna now, even though the fire is terrible, they're gonna build it back up. It's just crazy to see. So now I think, and you were just saying this, are they laying the groundwork to try to stop the Constitution and make it where we can't peacefully protest? I think that's a possibility. I'm surprised they didn't do it during the pandemic. So you're obviously awake to all the BS during the pandemic. I think the civil unrest is going to get much worse, especially under Trump, because now Trump is already kind of walking back, which I'm kind of fair. Did you see he put that tweet? Well, I'm friends with a
I
lot of
saw that.
hotel people, and so
Yeah,
you're
I
kind of
saw
like,
that.
that's kind of weird, and because even if he does that, he's not going to get the credit. Even if he slows down on the ICE deportations, they're going to still think he's a Nazi. They're still so I'm kind of like, I don't know if that's good, but maybe that is good. I'm going to let time be the judge of that.
Yeah,
But
that's
I,
good.
I guess I guess my point is there's going to be more civil unrest. It started with these pro-Palestinian protests, and those got kind of crazy. But now you have these ICE protests. We're going to be even more crazy. I just could not imagine, but I couldn't imagine locking down the whole entire world for this, the flu, for a serious flu. I just could not. If Donald Trump suspended the Constitution and made it illegal to protest during his presidency, I would be flabbergasted. I mean, I would be lost. I don't think that's a possibility. But you do think that is a possibility, Tony?
I think it's one of the cars to consider. I
And
wouldn't.
that's what they need. They don't want us protesting. I mean, you're right. I'm not calling you wrong. I'm just saying it seems so
Right.
far fetched for them to be like, you guys can't peacefully assemble. If they told us that, and during the pandemic, they tried to tell us that, and people still did it. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. I feel like if Donald Trump seriously said they would have to trick us into not wanting to protest, right? Because
Like
I don't
they
think they
tricked
could
us into taking the vaccine, or telling
Yeah,
us there's a pandemic and that it was only going to be 15 days. I mean,
right.
that
That's
15 days turned into like 2 years.
turning like three. I know. So they're gonna have to
Right.
trick us into compliance. They're gonna have to actually make us where we don't want to protest. So I don't know. I'm really worried. Do you think they're gonna do the pandemic round two is gonna happen anytime soon, or do you
I
think
hear
this
that's
is
in the works. I hear that's in the works, so we don't know. Just I think every day is I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen day to day. I mean, before 2020, you can kind of look 3 months ahead, right, and say, okay, this or that. But given now the way the situation, the times that we're living in, I think day to day is going to be, um, you know, it's just you can't even say week to week. Honestly, it's whatever happens from one day to the next.
I know, but this is the other thing is I get on all these conspiracies and like I get so black pilled sometimes where I'm just like, the future's so bleak.
So
But at
you
the
got to
same
believe in Jesus Christ. You got
No, I
to
do believe in Jesus. Well, this is what I was just
yeah,
going to tell you. Let me finish what I'm saying. But then I also realized my life's not that bad. I got my cat, got a beautiful girlfriend. I'm
right.
not rich, but I'm not totally broke. I have to
Hey,
work
you're
hard.
sitting
But I'm
by a
saying
fireplace. I mean, it's
I'm
awesome.
sitting by a fake fireplace. I got unlimited McDonald's money. For me, when I was a young
Right.
kid, the fact that I could eat 100 cheeseburgers and not be broke I would have thought that was an impossibility. But I do have that, so I guess I do want to have some gratitude, and I think that is important, Tony. That even though the world could be crumbling around us, and it did crumble around us recently, that it's all about the inner happiness that you find within yourself that's most important, the gratitude, because you were in the gang war and you came out of it. And can you tell us how did you come out of it alive? Especially anybody that growing up in LA is not promised to make it out because it's that wild.
Um, that's a good question, but I have enough friends that I grew up in LA where I've been to enough funerals, and I've been to different hospitals visiting friends. So I think there's a point where you grow up, and then I admire a lot of the guys that were from different neighborhoods that are now doing, prison ministry, that are preaching, that have accepted Christ, and they've really turned their life around. And I really admire those guys, whether I don't care what race they are, to me, they're a brother in Christ, so I mean, those guys are the guys that really deserve the credit because they're actually doing, what Jesus asked us to do, which is fulfill the Great Commission, which is to go out into the world and create disciples of all the nations. And then my add to that is to protect the faithful, to protect Christians, because I don't see myself as conservative anymore just because of the way the label's been washed through.
It's
With some of
terrible. I hate
yeah,
using that label too sometimes because I'm really kind of more moderate. Obviously, I have some very conservative views, but I have some views that aren't that far right. Yeah. So
yeah, and I don't trust the larger talking heads that are out there anymore, just because a lot of what they say doesn't coincide with their own actions, and they run back a lot of things, and it seems like they're parroting certain talking points at the same time. So for me,
like they're
my
all being fed a script, like they're all being fed a
exactly,
script, and that does happen. We've
yeah,
exposed that.
yeah, it's not spontaneous, and whether or not they're all getting together and say, hey, listen, this week let's push this out, right? That idea is coming from somewhere within or somewhere above. And I don't, to me, I don't, when I see that, it takes away the credibility of the person, and I don't want to associate myself with them. So for me, it's just a matter of faith with other people, regardless of their color of skin. So I see myself as a Christian before anything, and everything that comes after that is secondary, whether they consider me an American, a Korean, a roof Korean, or, conspiracy theorist or anti-vaxxer. You know what I mean? All those labels,
Yeah.
whatever. So,
They're all secondary to being a Christian, and
right.
I love that and respect. Okay, now let me give you because we only got you a couple more minutes. Let me give you some hard
Okay.
questions. 9/11, was it perpetrated by people within the United States government?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Tower
Because
Seven.
because
Well, can you?
yeah, Tower 7, and you cannot have towers come down like that. If you've seen enough controlled demolition videos, you know that was controlled demolition.
Just go watch a building in the Las
Absolutely.
Vegas
And not
Strip
only
and
that,
then
but follow
go.
the
Yeah.
money. Follow who
Well, Larry
shorted American
Silverstein
Airlines,
got, he got,
right?
yeah,
American
who
Airlines.
shorted, yeah, who
Right.
shorted United, who
Right.
shorted, it's crazy.
And who
Yeah.
took out the largest insurance policy ever on the World
Larry
Trade Center?
Silverstein. He took
Right.
out two. He got two because it was two strikes. So yeah, everybody needs to look into 9/11. I'm happy we agree on
Absolutely.
that, but it's a very tragic thing. The moon landing was a moon landing real or fake in 1969?
There's wires, and you're gonna tell me
That's
that,
fake. Thank
right?
you.
Right.
Tony. It's fake. You can
And
see that.
you've seen
Yeah.
that shuttle that brought them to the moon.
When
I
they
mean, you look at that,
poops off the moon and it's like boop and the camera
right,
follows it. It looks like a little model. It doesn't even look like a real ship. I mean, it's so
right,
funny.
right. So it is fake, and for me personally, I mean, you might have your listeners say, "Man, this guy's really off the wall," but I think I'm a flat earther too.
Well, okay.
Because
Well, I like flat Earth stuff. I like flat Earth stuff. I've done hours and hours, hundreds of hours, and I think there's
right,
so much evidence. People think you're crazy. Oh, what do you mean? There's a lot of evidence that we're not moving and that the sun, moon, and stars are moving. But people will call you crazy.
right,
But my friend Jaron just did go Jaronism. He's one of the biggest flat earthers, a guy I've known forever. Or I mean, since I started podcasting, I do conspiracy podcasts. I had him on my show, did shows with him. He did see the 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Like, so, and this guy, I'm telling you, he wouldn't lie. So my point is, what they're telling us about the Earth is a lie. They're not, however, they're describing the universe and Mars and this and that. That is a lie. I don't think the Earth can actually just be flat. It has to be round. There has to be.
maybe it's
So what
oval,
he,
something,
Oh, so I'm just saying something's to it. I
right?
don't know what it is,
Yeah,
Tony, but I
there's
know
more
that the
to it,
official story is not right. I know
right?
that. I don't know what it is, but I know that because like you'll have the flat earthers will tell you that beyond Antarctica, there's all these other worlds. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if we have enough evidence to start going there on podcasts and saying this. So my point is, do not believe the official story of anything. The idea that two rocks smashed together and that we evolved from pond scum is just unbelievable, and that there is a creator and God is real. And I think that's one of the most important things. These young kids are just constantly told that there is no God and that they're born in the wrong gender. And that is why we have such I guess, a depressed and lonely society.
Yeah, and I see that too. I mean, and Hollywood portrays that really well by rejecting Christ. Every chance that they get, they badmouth him, they make him look weak, they make us followers look like as if we're just, nutty. But true Christians are probably some of the most logical people that are out there, you know.
The nicest people. You never hear about a Christian
Yeah, and the
going with a
nicest people
suicide
too.
vest, and you never hear about a Christian getting mad at a Palestinian. I'm just saying, you never hear about that when it comes to Christians.
Right.
So, I think there is something to be said for that. All right, guys, everybody, Tony, before we go, how can people find you? We're going to put a link to your Twitter. It is a Roof Korean 7 on Twitter, but how else can people find you and support you?
Just on Roof Korean 7 on Twitter, and then buy my book when my book comes out. Hopefully it's a good read. My kids are reading it first. They're 14 and 16. It's written from the account of a 19-year-old, so I'm hoping to connect with a lot of teens. The 18 to 35 demographic is who I'm helping to connect with. So yeah, that's how you can support me.
And you have a big Twitter account. What was the thing that blew up your Twitter the most, Tony?
I think it was just the riots.
The
It
riots
sucks
you
to
just
say
posted.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, I would rather have half or even a quarter of who I
You got
have,
a lot. You got a lot now. You're closing on
Yeah,
150. You'll be at 150K, here in a couple months,
yeah.
probably, or a month. So.
If we had no riots, I'd give up, I'd be down to whatever. I don't care. No
Well,
riots, I'll take less.
Tony, you're a handsome guy, smart guy, wild guy. I'd love to have you on because all your conspiracy stuff. We got to do this again. So thank you, everybody. Go
Thanks for
buy
having me.
Tony's book right now. And guys, this is a real deal. Rooftop Korean. I can't believe I'm talking to a man that was there during the Rodney King riots. It's absolutely insane. You made it out alive. God bless you, Tony, and
You
thank you
too,
for
Alex.
being such a
Thank you.
great American patriot. God bless you.
God bless you too, Alex.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have an incredible guest. You guys know him. I mean, he's not just a political conservative pundit. He's not just a talk show host. He's not just a Christian minister, but he's actually a thought leader. He's a guy that goes against the grain, and it's an honor and privilege to have the one, the only Jesse Lee Peterson on the program. Jesse, how are you doing, my friend?
All is well, Alex. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
No, and it always is a pleasure, Jesse. You always go viral. It's always a new thing, and sometimes it's an old thing, but I want to get your opinion. What the hell? And excuse my French, what the heck is going on in California, your great state right now? Are you under attack? I'm worried that they might find where you're at and try to take you out, Jesse, with all these Trinidad Aruga gangbangers out there.
Well, so far it's happening downtown and it's happening in South Central LA, East LA, and around in those areas because that's where a bunch of the illegal Mexicans live. So a lot of illegal aliens are in that area. So in the West LA area so far, it doesn't even seem like it's happening, to be honest. So when I see it on the news here, it looked like it's happening somewhere else.
Oh, wow. Because I've heard that on the news where there's other pockets of LA, you can't even tell that it's going on. So that is true that in your area, west, whatever, the west part of town, you don't even notice it. Wow. So that the media is not lying about that. So
I'm in the Jewish area. So you know what? You don't mess with the Jews.
No, that's gonna be a safe area. That is gonna be probably the safest area. And now, see, can you see my screen right there? I don't know how well you can see. I do. Okay, so I want to play. This is a classic clip. And now these are protests, similar immigration protests. In what years? This is 1996, I believe, Jesse?
Yes, in the middle, late 90s for sure. And we were demonstrating. At that time, they was allowed, we tried to get this bill passed to stop them from allowing the illegals to come into our country. But it didn't work. The bill passed, I mean, we voted it in, but the judges said no, so it never did work. I believe it was Proposition 187, I think.
Well, let's just watch this
protest.
So you were protesting. So this was an immigration protest. This is more of a conservative protest. This original one, the one we're about to show.
Yes.
Are you all right?
Are you okay? Oh, I'm feeling better than ever.
Are you all right?
Yes, I'm all right.
Are you racist?
Am I what?
What are you think of these people now? Why? Why you stay here?
Are you racist? Am I racist?
Yeah.
No, I'm not a racist. Why do you ask that?
Well,
why is it that people who stand up for America and who want to protect our own borders, why are we always trying to be backed up with the racist thing? I'm standing here with a black man. If I was a racist, this is my brother right here. If I'm standing with him, how can I be a racist?
Are you a racist?
No.
So why would you ask him is he a racist?
Well, let me see.
Why would you ask that question?
Why you stand here?
And you asking him because he's white and you want to get away with this racist remark. Are you a racist?
No.
So why is it that he a racist because he's standing up for the country?
Do you like the Latin people? Do you like them?
Do you like them? No. Do you like them?
Yeah, I
like America?
People.
Do you like America?
Yeah.
Then what's the problem? You should be out here picking it with us. That's a dumb question to ask. You're asking that question so you can use it on your program to make him look like a racist. Why don't you ask me am I racist? Because I'm black, right? I love America too, and I think these illegal aliens need to be shipped back to their country. So why is that racist? You're a racist for asking him that question.
Thank you, Jesse.
And you're only doing it because he's white, and that's what you're going to show on your report tonight. You shouldn't play that kind of game. That's a dumb question.
Shame on you.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yes.
And I love that video because you just really kind of just shut her down. So Jesse, can you tell us what happened in that exchange?
First of all, we tried to get Proposition 187 passed where we can do something about all these illegals back in the 90s coming into our country. And so we were holding a rally over in the West LA area there. And some Mexicans showed up, a whole bunch of showed up people, the police everywhere, and they were throwing rocks at us and things like that. Frozen Coke can. They put the liquids in the can, they were throwing cans at us and things like that. And so this woman asked him, are you racist? And I'm standing right there too. And I knew that she was asking that because they know that white people are afraid, not all of them are afraid of the word racism. Mm-hmm. And so whenever they want to shut white people down, they always use that word racism, just as the blacks have used it on white people for the last 70 years or so. And so she was asking him that, and that's what she was going to report on her. White people are protesting, they don't want. And so I'm like, don't fall for that anymore. Let them call you whatever they want, but don't fall for it. Don't be afraid.
No, and she was shook when you called her out. She's like, I'm a black man. She really didn't know what to do. I thought that clip was so good. Now there's another.
Like, what?
Yeah. She was shook, but now a black woman, or I guess this is a black woman. She was a Hispanic woman, but kind of light skinned. Karen Bass. Can you see Karen Bass now? Now you just shut her down too. So can you give us before we play this clip? Can you give us a little background? Where was this? This was at the mayor debates. What was this event at, Jesse?
It was that. It may be up in San Francisco. I forgot the location. Or it may not. Yeah, I think it was in San Francisco. It's been so long, but it was a debate between liberals and conservatives. And I was invited to be on the panel there. It may have been downtown LA. And Karen Bass was there. And it was in Los Angeles. And area all the time, they always want to blame slavery on white people. They want to say the poor blacks, they can't make it because of the white man. And so we were dealing with that issue. It was that Politicon in downtown LA.
Okay, well, let's watch you kind of shut her down. Let's see.
We need to figure out how we're going to do it.
I'm speaking.
I know, but
I love that.
Speak over me. You need to hold on.
Yeah, but I mean,
Hold on. You can't be rude to me. Thank you. Very quick. Right. I can't believe
it's not just me.
I want to say that there is a deeper cause for this. I do want to first say that there is no such thing as racism. Racism has never existed. It's a lie. It's a lie that
You know what's kind of funny about that? You can kind of tell it's a lot of white people in the crowd that say it's not. You can tell that the guys he and ha, and you can tell they're white guys that are saying.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how it ends. What were you going to say, Jesse? Sorry.
It's amazing though that 70 years later, that these so-called people of color are allowed to still use that word, and not all white people, but a lot of white people still tremble in their shoes, in their boots, because they're afraid of a word, of name calling and things like that. How can you live a full life being afraid of words? It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, you're right, but that's the number one weapon. I get called a racist all day long. You know what I mean? That is, and nobody likes being called that. I mean, I like this statement you're saying. Well, it's just because it's a negative connotation. I wouldn't like being called stupid. I wouldn't like being called ugly. You know what I mean? It doesn't have a positive connotation. What do you mean? Why don't I like it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm kind of indifferent to it. It doesn't hurt that bad, but I just don't want to be called racist because I don't have any racism in me because I'm not actually racist.
But why will you be concerned about someone calling you names and what they think about you? They can say whatever they want. It's just a word. And
no, you're exactly right. But I do a lot of these
people are not affected by words. And so
I know
if you didn't think of it as good or bad, they cannot touch you with it.
That is a good point. But I'm just saying I do a lot of college debates and that's always, oh, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. And it's like, I'm not racist. Okay. I just get it so much and I'm kind of like, all right, I become numb to it, really.
Right on. And I recommend you become numb to all words. And that way you cannot be controlled by words, because when you become numb to it, you realize there's nothing to protect, whatever, right? And it's just evil human beings are using words in order to control you, to bring fear, to shut you down. And once they see that you're afraid of words, they will destroy you. But if they know that words don't bother you, it's just a word, then what are they going to do? It's just a word.
You're right about that. Okay, let's watch the audience's reaction. They cannot believe that you said racism doesn't exist. And of course, I'm going to replay it just a little bit. Guys, notice the kind of vocal tone of the people that are hemming and hawing, and you can kind of tell that they're not African-American, the ones that are getting mad.
Right. I can't believe
it's not just me.
I want to say that there is a deeper cause for this. I do want to first say that there is no such thing as racism. Racism has never existed. It's a lie. It's a lie that's been used. It's a lie that's been used to divide and conquer, to keep black people angry at white folks, and to keep white people afraid to speak up. The battle is black Americans, not all, are suffering due to the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character. If they had fathers and mothers together, loving them and guiding them in the right way to go, they would not, you wouldn't see the type of crime.
So no people explain everything.
And I wasn't just interrupting for me. We have to figure out how we're going to do this panel. If one person is going to be on the panel,
but you cannot interrupt me.
Things to do.
It's not up to you to decide that.
All right. Thank you, Congressman.
And I think you shut her down. I mean, I'm not just saying that. You really did shut her down, in my opinion.
One thing I realize about that is that these people think just because they have a title to their name, Congresswoman or Vice President or whatever, somehow or another they think that they're above you. And they think that somehow or another they could be able to say and do whatever they want because they're the Congresswoman or this or that, and you're supposed to bow down to them. I would never do that. That's not, it's just a title. You still dealing with evil people. And the title is I realize the title covered that up for those who are afraid, but she was a Congresswoman at that time, but she's still lying, she was still evil, and she needed to be dealt with.
No, and you're right, because, I went viral for going and kind of lampooning these politicians, and they're just like you and me. It matters like they're worse than us, really. I feel like if somebody that's watching this and you're like, oh, they're the mayor, they're so good. That mayor of your town or of that city is probably worse than you because they're more compromised, and these people might get into politics with the best aspirations. But once they get in, you have her, Karen Bass. All you're saying is that people do not have the strong family home. People are lacking moral character, and they think that that's an attack on her personally. And when in reality, it's just I would say an objectively true statement.
Well, I've seen you in operation, so I know you can deal with all this mess. What a mess! Yeah. But they don't want you to know that the problem with not all but most the blacks is that they're angry and that they have not had fathers to protect them from the angry mothers. And then they have been told that it's the civil rights and it's racism and this. Our battle is a spiritual battle. It's a warfare between good and evil. The evil that works in our mind and emotions, and the evil that works in other people. And they try to control you. They want us divided because as long as they can keep you divided, they can conquer you. And that's why they keep using that word over and over again, when in reality, there's no such thing as racism. It's made up. It's just a word with no meanings at all.
Well, you know why I think what you're saying is 100% true? Because every time one of these, young African-American black guys, they sign a big contract, they don't go buy a house in the hood. They go buy a house in the whitest neighborhood possible. So they wouldn't go buy that house in that neighborhood if they thought they're going to be the victim of racism. You know what I mean? They want to live with the whites too. So obviously racism to them is not as big a problem as they'd like it to be.
It's not, and they know it too, man, Alex. They know that it's not a problem, but they understand that white people have money, white people are afraid, white people build things, and so they can sue white people, they can get what they want from white people. You don't see them calling the Mexican racist. You don't see them calling poor people racist. They only do it to white people because white people are the only one that has something that they can get from them. But if white people were poor, they wouldn't be calling you racist either. They'll find someone else to call racist. It's about the money, and they are being manipulated by people like Karen Bass and the so-called leaders and all that mess. It's just a mind control thing for money and power.
No, and you're exactly right. Well, speaking of money and power, though, because we only have you for a few more minutes, Dave Portnoy's been getting a lot of heat. He's the leader of Barstool Sports, where he said that we can't make fun of jokes of Jews. And I think that, I think like we should make fun of everybody, Jews, Muslims, Christians. We should be able to tease each other a little bit. I believe in freedom of speech. But how do you feel about Dave Portnoy and kind of the latest drama that he's gotten in by being so sensitive for people teasing him for his Jewish heritage?
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of what's going on with that. Can you tell me?
Well, Dave Portnoy is the guy that started Barstool Sports, and what happened was at his nightclub, he owns multiple nightclubs, and somebody had a sign that said "F the Jews," and it went viral. But what he did was he invited the kids that had the sign. That's why it was a huge story. He invited them to go on a trip to Auschwitz, and of course he got lampooned. Everybody's like, "Oh, so these kids say F the Jews, and now you're going to give them a free vacation to go to Poland or go on this great trip." So then he shuts that down. long story short, about 2 weeks goes by. He's doing a pizza review, which he's famous for, which I'm sure you've seen. He's a guy who eats a pizza in front of the restaurant. Oh, this pizza's good or bad. Somebody says F the Jews during the pizza review. While he's doing the review, somebody says F the Jews. And he gets all mad and is just heaving and hot. And then he goes on his podcast after, and his one of his co-hosts says, I don't think that was that big a deal. He said, after the Jews, the guy, he's just joking. It's, I think we should be able to joke. And Dave got really here. Let me just pull it up real quick. I can find it in 2 seconds. So this is Dave getting mad. So you can get some context. Dave Portnoy yelling. Okay, I can pull it up right here. And my point is, the reason why this is kind of a big deal is because he just seems kind of like a hypocrite. He in this video, the way that he treats his employee, it just looks kind of bad. And I think we should be able to tease people, even of different religions. Yeah. Okay. So let me play the clip. Let me share it right here. Okay. Let me pause it. I'm sharing it right now. Let me share this and share sound. Share. Go like this. And can you see this, Jesse?
I can, yes.
Not mention it, not care that this kid
Not at all.
Shut up. If you just want me to ignore it.
Don't tell me to shut up. Don't
shut the fuck up, you bald fuck.
Okay, go ahead.
How's that?
Oh, it's kill. I'll never recover from that, Dave. Go ahead, continue. I'll never recover.
Well, you're the one who big boss man, don't tell. I'll tell you work for me.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
You little bitch, you work for me.
Sure, you bet. For now,
oh, you
continue.
Don't? For now, quit. I don't care.
Is this show or not a show? Like, is a show or not a show? Like, we can't have a conversation?
You're an idiot.
Okay, continue.
You're literally saying people should be allowed to make Jew jokes, say whatever they want right fucking now.
Yes, I think people should be allowed to make jokes.
So how many motherfucking Jews have to be killed before you stop? Hey, Kirk, if you just want me to kick him out and not mention it.
So that was just a small kind of snippet of it. And the reason why I want to ask you, Jesse, as a Christian minister, it is a very tough thing to navigate. Israel, Palestine, this and that. I'm anti-terrorist. But, where does the victimhood, kind of the Israel-Palestine fall, in your opinion, guys like Dave Portnoy acting like, hear some words and acting like a victim like that? Is it okay for him to act like that? Or what is your personal opinion? How do we navigate this?
I think that it is insane that he's acting that way, carrying on like that. But that's what happens when you have anger. Anger, which most people don't know, anyone that has anger is evil. And anger separates you from God. And being separated from God, you are one with evil. So you're very emotional, you're up and down, you feel good, and then you feel afraid, then you feel good, then you feel afraid because you're separated from truth. And for David, whatever his name is, to display that type of anger, it shows that he's very insecure. Because if somebody said F the Jew, and you know what? That's them. They're representing themselves. It has nothing to do with the Jews. It has nothing to do with David. It's the person said that, and they're representing themselves. And I love the good old days because in the good old days when Richard Pryor, all those guys were around, they made jokes about everybody. Yeah. Men and women, all races, it didn't matter. And now everybody's so sensitive. And I think the Jews need to stop being so sensitive about whatever has happened, because that happened then. That doesn't mean it's happening now. Let's deal with now and relax and enjoy life. We should be able to joke about anyone.
I agree. I feel like, when we have a good situation, we have something good, we can't ever appreciate it in this current mindset. We can't ever appreciate the good things. Okay, now,
as you know, I love the Jews.
Yeah, and I love the Jews. I'm not anti-Jew. I'm just saying sometimes when you act like a victim like that, you're not that much different than Karen Bass is the point that I was trying to make.
Absolutely. It's the same spirit. It's the same thing. Angry people are out of control. They're very emotional. It doesn't matter if they're male or female. They need to drop the anger. And once you drop that anger, you're free within yourself. And when you're free in your world, you could deal with the outer world. It cannot touch you because you are your own world, men and women that work on themselves, overcoming anger. You are the head of your own world, and no outside forces can upset you. They can't move you when you have control of your own world. And David doesn't seem to have that.
No, Dave doesn't. And that's such a good point because you can only worry about the things that you can actually control. And we
Yes.
constantly worry about the things we can't control instead of actually worrying about the things that we can and making our lives better, trying to fix our lives. And instead, we try to pretend and try to worry about stuff that's literally out of our control. So, Jesse, you always have the greatest, you always have such good takes, and you're your wisdom is off the charts. Now, real quick, just want to go through this
Okay.
before we talk about the White History Month. I want that to be the last thing. Can you just give us kind of a short, who is more responsible for the anger in adult life, the mother or the father? Because you talk about oftentimes in, the African American community, there's a father missing, but usually the mom is there, the grandmother is there. There's usually, some sort of parent. Obviously, they had to have them unless they gave them up for adoption. So I'm saying, is it better to be raised by one parent than the other? Are you automatically screwed if you get raised by a single family? Or, I mean, what is your opinion on, obviously a two-parent home would be the best, but can you still succeed in a one-parent home without a father or mother in your life?
Let's say that you come into this world, you have a father and a mother, and then for some reason the father and the mother break up, they separate. It's best that the children go with the father rather than the mother.
I went with my dad. And when my parents got divorced, it had caused me some animosity. And my mom and I had a little animosity about it, but then we actually worked things out. But I'm saying it was the best thing because my mom couldn't raise me. So I went with my dad when I was, I think I was 12 years old or 13 years old.
In the good old days when boys were boys and men were men, when there was a separation in the family, and the kids, the boys and the girls, went with the father because they knew it was best that the children go with the father because the mother was too insecure. She's very angry. And anger, there's no love in anger. Mothers don't have love. And that's why they need the father. They don't have it until they forgive their mothers and return to God, right? But so when the children are left with the mother, she end up destroying them psychologically and emotionally. She recreate them in her image and because of her anger. So the mother needs the father to be there because the fathers are the light of the family, and the mother follow the light of the father in the way to guide the children. Even when it's time to discipline the kids, it should come from the father, not the mother, because women don't have love. They only have hatred, and it's very destructive. And that's what has happened to the blacks. And not only the blacks, it's happened to, I do counseling around the world, as everybody. But the blacks have been destroyed because they have their mothers and grandmothers' anger, and the mothers hate the fathers. And the reason they hate the fathers is because the man represents God. He's the son of God. Even if he's a beta male, he still represents God, good. And whereas the woman represents evil, Satan is the woman's God. And so hell comes through the woman. And all women, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, Jewish, Mormon, Allahu Akbar, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The hatred, the anger come through the woman because Satan is the woman's God. And so the father needs to be there to protect that, but if the father is not there, they should go to the mother. And the women have destroyed the black men and black girls because they didn't have love to pass on to the children. They only have hate, and you become like what you hate. That's why most men are just like women. Any man that gets angry is a woman. He has his mother identity, and that's why God said that we must be born again. Those who are born of the woman, born of the flesh, must be born of the spirit of the Father. And until that happens, you're never going to have peace. That's why I tell guys of all races and women, you got to go and forgive your mother for imposing her will on you and causing you to become like her by becoming angry. And God will forgive you. Forgive the father for not protecting you from the mother. He could not help it because he became like his mother. And you tend to marry the woman you hate. Every man marry his mother. And that's why this cycle repeats itself. And so as soon as he get married, he become the boy and the mother become the dictator. And the cycle repeats itself over and over again. So if you want to overcome the spirit of the mother, you got to forgive her. Otherwise, the woman will always be your God because whatever you hate become your God. Anyone that has hatred, anger has hatred.
Well, and that makes me feel kind of bizarre because my girlfriend looks like my mom. I mean, they're not twins, but they're blonde hair. My mom was tall. My girlfriend's tall. I mean, they definitely look
Oh
similar. That
God. Oh
I know.
Lord. Why George, Lord? Why George? You're
You're right,
married.
though. You
Your
nailed it.
girlfriend, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to get married pretty soon. I mean, I'm going to probably have to be engaged. I want to be engaged. I'm just saying, yes, that we're on that track. And it's funny you say that because, and I dated other girls, brunettes and stuff that aren't like my mom, and I didn't get along with them as well. And there is something weird. Maybe it's subconsciously. I do
You're
like that.
dating your mother,
Well,
and
she's a
you're
little different than my mom, but yeah, I see what you're
oh,
saying. Yes, yeah, yeah. But
it's
I
the
guess I
same
am.
spirit.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're
You
saying.
can prove me wrong. Correct this woman when she's wrong, when she's angry, when she's out of control, or stop catering to her. She will destroy you. And she will say things like, "You don't love me. You used to treat me this way. You used to buy me flowers. You used to go to dinner. You don't love me." And what she's saying, I'm losing control over you. Well, you don't let me control you the way you used to. What's wrong? She's losing control, and she would do whatever it takes to get back that control. You're dating your mama.
I probably am. You're right about that. Well, okay, speaking though
You
of people
gotta
that have
forgive
had
your mother.
I've already forgiven my mom. My mom's dead. I mean, I got no beef with my mom. My
Right
mom,
on.
I helped take care of my mom until the day she died. But I'm saying I did have a little beef with her when I was younger when my parents got divorced, but her and I actually we worked that out, believe it or
Right
not,
on.
about 10 years ago. But it was a it was a big deal to work that out. But my point is Destiny. You had this great clip that's going viral. I don't even need to pull it up where you basically just kind of you called out what was going to happen to Destiny with his failed marriage. Now looking back, he was doing the cuckold thing. That's a new thing, Jesse, where these guys are wife swapping and all. What is that about? And that can only lead to destruction, right? I mean, there's no
Yes.
way that you can have a successful relationship being polyamorous like that. Can you explain why that has infected our society recently?
It's not gonna change. It's not gonna change until he start working on himself, all men and women. Men are responsible as an adult individual to overcome their hell. Women are responsible to overcome their hell. Men cannot bring a woman out of her misery. You can't bring her out of hell. She has to work on herself by forgiving her mother and father to overcome. And as long as that is that way, the woman is the man God, and he's trying to get love from the woman. And women do not have love to give. The love come from the man get his love from God, and the woman get her love from the man. Unless she's working on herself and she goes straight to God by forgiving her father. And so angry people keep repeating the same cycle over and over and over again because they're lost in their intellect. They're believing the lies of the thought. All thoughts are all lies all the time about anything. And the thought would tell you, well, this woman didn't work out. Get another woman. Go to church and get a woman, or go to the bar and get a woman, or go online and get a woman. And you go online and get a woman, and it's the same spirit. It's the same woman. And then once you do that, the spirit of evil laugh at you because it made a fool of you. But then you consult with the thoughts again. Well, what about if I do it this way? And then you do it that way, you end up with the same thing, right? As long as you listen to thoughts, which are not your own, all thoughts are all lies about anything. And as long as you consult with the imagination, you're going to always make the wrong decisions because you've been lied to. It's only when you come out of the imagination and live in the present, stay present rather than in your head, everything you do will turn to gold. You'll be just fine because you're guided by the Spirit of God then. And God's voice is not in your head. Satan live in your head, and God's voice is a voiceless voice. He reveals things to you, and Satan talk to you. And all angry people, it doesn't matter how much money you have, where you live, what race you are, all people, until they drop that anger, they're living in their imagination, and they believe that they are their thoughts. They think that they are their feelings. They don't even know who they are because they have identified with evil. And so, as long as Destin or anyone listen to thought, it's going to always be the same or even get worse. You got to stop trusting thoughts. You have to doubt them, and you stay present and live in the moment, and you'll be fine. But you got to
No,
drop
you're
the anger.
No, you're right, because like even with like diet and stuff, like you're trying to lose weight, it's like those thoughts, like go eat the hamburger. That's kind of
Yes.
like the negative. You know what I mean? It's those
Yeah.
thoughts. If you can kind of control those in different applications, not just with weight loss, but with your interpersonal communication, with your
Anything.
friendship business, and yeah, it's right. You are. It's kind of your thoughts will creep in your head. Okay, before we go now, Jess, you're getting a lot of kickback. I loved your tweet today. Do we really need a White History Month, though? I mean, I'm not saying this as a white guy. I mean, I like the idea, but
Right.
then once we have White History Month, then it validates all of the Gay History Month, it validates Black History. I mean, why don't we just have every history year? You know what I mean? Or do you really think that the whites should have a a White History Month just like the Black History Month?
July just feels white. You got to admit
It
that.
does. It does. It does. Yeah. The white linen, the white, it feels white. July's white. Yeah.
The 4th of July, summertime, vacation time. You have time to reflect and appreciate your work, your family. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah, it's
July
great.
just feel white. And the reason I started White History Month because I noticed that in my country, they're doing everything they can do to destroy real history of America. They're replacing it with false history, lies and pretense and things like that. And the generations to come, they're not going to be able to appreciate America because they're going to have this false history about America. And I noticed that they have every history but white history. And it was white men who founded and created the greatest country on this side of heaven. And I'm thinking, we got to remind the people of that. We got to remind the generation to come. White people founded this country. They created the greatest country in the whole wide world. Here are the things that they did. We got to remind them of that and not let Black history, Mexican history, Abba history, woman history, gay history, every history but true history, which is white history. And white history represents America. And so I started White History Month to remind the people of what made America so great at one time. And we need it. Otherwise, generations to come will forget and they won't know what America was built on, what it was all about, and who built America. They won't know that. And it's only going to make the country worse instead of better if they don't know what's going on. So that's why we started White History Month in July. And I believe we're coming up with our 8th year of White History Month. It's
That's
amazing.
awesome. It is amazing. Okay, just before you go, tell the people how can they find you and how can they support you? Everybody knows who you are. I know you're world famous, but how can my audience go find you and support you, Jesse?
Let me first, I'm being told that your mother expired from cancer or something like that.
No, she had COVID and they gave her remdesivir and she died. She died
Really?
of COVID. Yeah, they gave her remdesivir. They murdered my mom. It was very, very traumatic. She died in my arms, Jesse. Her and I are really close. I was with her every day.
May her soul rest in peace, man. That's
Very
amazing.
It was amazing.
Huh?
No, it was amazing. It was unbelievable. I'll tell you that much. I mean, amazing in the worst way possible. But
we started White History back in 2018. And people can get more about what we are, what we're doing by going to jesseleepeterson.com, rebuildingtheman.com, or what else, Nick?
Jesse Lee Peterson on YouTube.
Jesse Lee Peterson on YouTube. Everybody needs to go. Right. Everybody probably already follows that. And jlptalk.com. Okay, last question.
jlptalk.com.
Rosa Parks' husband had a damn Cadillac. Come on, Jesse. Well, I mean, how is that not a bigger story than that? You know what I mean?
Rosa Parks was a fake. It was all a made up lie. What had happened is that the NAACP had found this black girl, and they were like, let's go and protest the bus, let's cry racism and all that, right? So they found this black woman to go on this bus and pretend like she was just so tired and she wasn't going to the back of the bus anymore. But before they were able to pull it off, my back hurt. Lord have mercy. I've been taking care of these white babies all day. But before that happened, they found out that she was pregnant out of wedlock. And during those days, black people did not accept out of wedlock birth, pregnant women.
Now they only accept out of wedlock. You know what I mean? Isn't that crazy? They didn't accept. Now they only have babies out of wedlock. Sorry to cut you off. Okay, so they didn't accept it back then.
They have baby showers and everything. but so they found out this woman pregnant, and so they couldn't use her. And then they went and found Rosa Parks. That woman named Claudette
Colvin.
Claudette Colvin is the name of the original.
Was the
woman
original one
right?
that was
But
pregnant.
she was pregnant out of wedlock, and black people, it was an embarrassment to get pregnant out of wedlock. So they went and found this woman, and they used her to do that. It was a setup. It wasn't like one day she was just on the bus, nobody around, and she pretended she was so tired, and all of a sudden the white people attacked up. It was a setup, but most black people don't know that. And the civil rights movement, other than abortion, the civil rights movement was the worst thing that has ever happened to the blacks. They have not recovered as a result of the civil rights movement. I grew up in Alabama on a plantation, and black people were free. They owned their own businesses. They went to black universities. They had families. They got along with white folks, and they had a life going on for themselves. That all changed when the civil rights movement came along, and the black leaders, Jesse Jackson and Martin Luther King and all those people, set themselves up as the leader of the black people, and they sold them over to the Democratic Party, because prior to that, most blacks were Republican. They sold them to the Democratic Party. They became the leaders because they wanted money and power, and the black people have never recovered since that time. It was amazing. Rosa Parks was a fake.
She was a fake, but you're right, because what we do is we trade. You end up trading your freedom, for security from the government. That's what they did. They joined the left. They're going to protect us, and then all of a sudden they lost their ingenuity, they lost their culture, they lost their drive to become and stay successful. So you're right, civil rights. I know it sounds crazy, but it probably could have hurt the black community more than help them. That's wild. Well, Jesse, thank you so much for making time. Everybody needs to go follow Jesse if you don't follow already. And God bless you. Everybody needs to go watch the Hodge twins. Jesse, you did so good on the Hodge twins. I laughed for the whole time. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Jesse. And God bless you. Keep up the good work. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, but they could also find us on the falledstate.tv.
Everybody, I was a guest on that. Everybody go to Fall and State. You have some of the best guests. You had that other liberal guy on there the other day. Yeah. You had Jeremiah Watkins. Everybody guys go follow fallenstate.tv, and it's such a good program. Thank you, Jesse. Have a good evening.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Talk to you again soon.
All right, buddy. Amazing.